Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the FinTech Hunting podcast. We have an awesome guest for you today. He's an industry thought leader. He's a leading sales expert. He's a technology evangelist, and he is host of One Take. Please help me welcome back to the show, Jason Smith, Director of Business Development at Mortgage 365. Jason, welcome back.
Hey, thank you, sir. You're gonna make me blush there. Did I turn red or am I shadowed enough to block that? I love that.
Oh, well, it is great to have you. All of those things are true. You bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise. We'll talk about One Take in a little bit, but kind of give me some of your insights on where you think the industry is right now, especially from, a vendor perspective. We've had the Fed lower rates, but it doesn't necessarily mean mortgage rates drop instantly. Kind of give me your take on all the conversations you have with lenders of where you kind of see things at.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think it's great. And a couple of different things with that. I think I had a conversation with somebody about that yesterday. What was really cool is at a conference more recently, and there were a lot of conversations. And it was the first time I really heard people intent on finding different ways of doing things and not just sort of the same BAU process. They're looking for different ways. And it was really cool because it might not have been the greatest news because, obviously rates had kind of already adjusted to the Fed's rate drop and things like that. But I think what really caught people the most, and this is how I said it, was that it wasn't bad news. And we got used to hearing bad news or getting bad news. So anything that isn't bad news by default, at least in our world, is going to be good news. And I think people are finally see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, but also they're really looking inward and seeing, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistakes I did before when volume was up. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to adjust. We've had to make some changes and things like that. And it's really cool to see it. Very refreshing conversations as opposed to like, well...
Well, and I think one of the challenges we've always faced, especially when we've been on the vendor side of the business, is when the business is great and it's booming, lenders don't have time to talk to you. And then it seems like there's no middle ground and it's just doom and gloom and kind of to your point of Eeyore of, man, we're just holding on. We got to wait another 6 months, another year. So I'm encouraged by those conversations. I've been having some of the same conversations. And talk to me about where you see lenders willing to make it different this time. Because I think, kind of the benchmark has been, let's just throw human spackle at it. When times are good and rates are low and volume's up, let's throw a bunch of people at it, and lenders hire a gob of people. And then when it gets tough, they just fire a bunch. How is technology helping them change that focus and not do that same thing time and time again?
No, that's a great question. And going back just a second ago from the switch back and forth, it reminded me, it's kind of like the seasons in the Midwest. I'm born and raised St. Louis and now in Northeast Florida, but it's like you seem to go from air conditioning to heater and you're there. And that's what it feels like what we've done a little bit in the industry for the last, handful of years. So it's really good to kind of get, let's call it, well, we're in fall now, but let's call it a fall or a spring. It's nice to get that transition period. And I think what people are really seeing now, and I've had a lot of conversations. That's the other cool thing. I like to think it's all because of me and my awesomeness and Mortgage 365. They're great product, the One Takes. I could continue on with the commercial, but I won't. What's driving all of these conversations and people reaching out, but a little bit of it, I'm sure. But really what it is I found talking to several different folks from smaller and mid-sized companies to big, huge ones, is that they are looking for a way to do things different. They want to get users, especially LOs, out of the LOS, which you could pick your reasons for doing that.
Right.
Compliance is at the top of my list. They want to get them out of that. And they want to make their job easier so they can help manage their relationships at scale. Because you've seen the stats, and you and I have had conversations about it a ton in the past. The biggest, I would say the number one issue in the mortgage industry as far as the borrower is concerned, the borrower interaction, is the complete lack of consistency. There just isn't the same experience from one borrower to the next, even with the same loan officer, the same company, the same team, and things like that. And I think companies are really seeing that, and they're wanting to take back control from a, let's call it an enterprise level. And even if you have, if you have 10, 15 people, or you have 5,000 people, they want to take back control of that to make sure that their brand is on par, similar to going to a McDonald's, or I don't know why I said McDonald's, but maybe because their quarter pounders with cheese are fresh beef now. But any of those that we experience, those things where you go and you know what to expect. Every Chick-fil-A is a master at it, and you know what to expect. I think they're finally seeing that is, pun intended, the secret sauce to continued long-term success.
It's that duplicatable processes so that they have that same experience. Well, you touched upon it, so I'm going to dive deeper of the importance of building relationships. And you've mentioned it, so you can drive more business to Mortgage 365 and that. But I think it goes beyond that of loan officers that are going to be successful the rest of this year, next 2025, 26 are the ones that have gotten out of just treating everybody like a transaction, and they now treat them as a relationship. How important is it to foster and build relationships in today's market, whether it's on the vendor or lender side?
I think it is the one thing that is the true differentiator for originators and lending companies as well as vendors. It is that relationship, the genuineness of it, the value you bring. We have those conversations. You preach about it all the time. You're like the Jedi master of that, bringing value to relationships, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I know them, or we go back and forth, but it's what value are you bringing to that? But a relationship is absolutely essential, because the reality is, with the modern world, with the technology that's out there, people can go anywhere. And that's what we used to think, that people were just driven by rates, by how quickly it can close, by what the closing costs were and things like that. And we forgot that it's always similar to business. It has always been a people and a human business. And people want that. They want to be treated that way, and they want to be understood that way. And it's absolutely critical.
So talk to me about the power of video then in enhancing those relationships, because in today's market, we've just finished, a couple of tough years. Some companies are struggling more than others. Some are on the kind of upswing and kind of that hockey curve growth, but you can't always be at every conference. You can't go
Right.
and be in front of the borrower. You can't be in front of the lender all the time. How important is video in creating and growing those relationships until you can see that person in person?
I think it is absolutely essential. It's critical in everything. You can't put enough exclamation points or things in italics or enough emojis to get your personality across as much, and your emotion and your sentiment across as much as it would by video. And a real case in point in that is that I've worked virtually for a little over a decade now. And the first company I worked at, and for years, we never, ever, ever used video. And along came, COVID-19, and suddenly everyone wants to use video. And at first I'm like, why? We never did this before. But what I found was that when I first started, the company I had originally worked for was on a team, and we had a lot of regular meetings. So that really that helped create some of the relationship a little bit quicker. But it took 6 months to really sort of kind of get to know someone, even on just a verbal call, a Teams call or a Zoom or something without video. But when you turn that around, and it's either a video call or it's a chat like this, or if it's a video that you're putting out as someone talking about something, suddenly you can almost get to know someone, or at least the type of person they are, in 30 seconds, in 2 minutes, in 5 minutes. You watch a couple and you're like, hell, this is my old friend.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why I love your one takes. I watch them all the time. It's not just
Appreciate
lip
that.
service. I enjoy them. And like you said, it elevates the relationship, because you and I can now laugh about, we both had a Chevy Citation back in the day. Mine was maroon. It was a 4-door with a luggage rack, and I could always see it in the dorm parking lot because it had that luggage rack. And when you share those stories, and I know you're a history buff, and so
Yeah.
when you're doing one takes and you're sharing history and I can relate to that whether you and I have been able to sit down 100 times or only a handful of times. We've only been able to meet in person, but I think it elevates the relationship because when I watch those, I'm like, wow, that's another thing that we have in common. Oh, that is so funny. I remember when that happened, or my first job, or when the car broke down. When you share those stories, you're sharing a part of you, even though it's business related. Because I get a lot of business
Mhm.
owners like, well, what does this have to do with me closing more deals? And it's
Everything being,
getting
by the way.
people to grow the relationship. So I love what you're doing. Tell me about kind of how you started One Take and kind of what you're finding in doing those one takes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, it's I'll get that in a second, but just to kind of tap it on what you say, imagine what our relationship would be like if we weren't able to communicate by video like this, or neither one of us had ever watched any video by the other. If we removed all of that from the equation, where would we be at? It would be a completely different relationship. We would still be building the trust, we would still be building the understanding, all of that stuff. And that's what I liked about, the inspiration for the one takes. I have to give I have to give Delilah a lot of credit on those. She and I have had a lot of conversations. I love her Taco Tuesdays. And then she talked about, I did a couple of those with her, and then a few things with you, and it's like they're all done in these one takes. A lot of people think that so many of this, I would imagine a lot of people do multiple takes, or there's a lot of editing. But I love the rawness, and even somebody like Delilah is constantly keeping me honest with that. But it's really cool because it gives an idea, and it's kind of how let's call it, sold it to my team at Mortgage 365. We're a small company, so it's a small group that you have to sell to, thankfully. But speaking with our founder and CTO, or CTO and CEO, Jason Sedig, and then our marketing person Shondan, it's like the idea is to let people inside the type of company and the type of people that we are. And we don't want to just talk about how awesome our product is. It doesn't want to be a pitch. What's important to us and how we view the world and the things around us define who we are. Not what we say we are, but the things that we do and we experience, and how we relate those, or how we relate to those, relay those and relate to those. Let me correct my English there. That is what really defines our character, our characteristics, our personalities, our culture. And that's what's really cool, because people get a kind of a peek under the hood a little bit. And I find myself even more so too, getting a little more personal with the stories, giving a little access in. I had one a week or so ago. I never would have said that story a year and a half, 2 years ago. Never. But you get comfortable with the reactions, with the interactions, and just being able to be comfortable with putting yourself out there. And I think it's so endearing and genuine to people that they love it. I love it when I see it. That's one of the things I love about your Monday morning videos. It's awesome. I get to know what the heck Michael did over the weekend. By the way, he really loves his wife a ton and loves his life. That's awesome. That's a happy person. I want to interact with that person as much as possible. And that's really where you can't get that from an email. You can't get that from, a phone call, or once or twice at you're at a conference.
I agree completely. And thank you for sharing those stories. And like you said, we start sharing some more of those personal things. I mean, a couple years ago, I would have never shared a picture of me from 20 some, 30 years ago and my wife, and she probably would have shot me for like, what are you sharing
Right.
that
Yeah.
stuff with? But you share it because you start feeling comfortable and you've kind of built up relationships with so many people. And I think the other key component of when people do this right on video, then when you meet in person, it's like a long lost friend. You can't wait to give them a big hug. You can't wait to see him.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in Denver. And that's a lot different than people who don't spend any time on video, and they're now reaching out to people to schedule meetings for MBA, and they do speed dating and they spend 3 minutes with you. Like,
Right.
whatever. There's no relationship there. Now, let's dive into a little bit of tech. First of all, tell me what's going on at Mortgage 365. I know we always say not a sales pitch, but I'm giving you, and I'm teeing it up for you. I'm asking the question. Give me some updates. What's new at Mortgage 365? How are you guys adding value to lenders? what's going on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'll try to keep it as pitchless as possible. I can't believe I said that, and I don't believe I spit on my screen there. But no, we're having a lot of fun in what we're doing, and something, and this isn't lip service either. And I try to tell the people all the time when I talk to them, we are constantly we're hunters and gatherers when it comes to technologies. We're always out there hunting for the best ideas, hunting for what the market actually needs, what our clients need, what our future clients need, and bringing that in and making decisions based upon that. What we're really finding, and what I'm finding a ton, and I love it, is that people really are craving for a simpler experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most efficient thing on the planet. They want simple. It's complex, working in and out of multiple systems, and in UIs that weren't designed UIs that weren't designed by a user, by an end user. That is, that reminds me of a conversation I had years ago when I was on client services for a company I will not name. They're not around anymore anyway. But, they said, oh, well, this. So what you're saying, Jason, is that it's working as designed, just not as desired. I was like, well, if it's not working as desired, then it's designed wrong. And I think that's what the industry is finally coming up against now, is that. And so we're really seeing people embracing the fact that we can corral the originator and the LOA's activities into one single, easy to use work surface. And we're expanding on things. We just rolled out, we showed a digital mortgage. We have an approval letter, an automated one. Everything's automated. You click on it, click. You can text it, you can email it, things like that. We're expanding things like documents, because that is simple. If you really want to get originators out of these other platforms, you have to make sure you're bringing in the things that they have. And what I love is that companies are seeing our value in their everyday life, and not just from a end user perspective, because they see that and they love it. But C-level folks are finally going, you know what? We need to find a better way for our teams, because, well, we want to keep them here for starters. And we want to be able to attract without ridiculous bonuses. I'll dip into that pool for 2 seconds there. Ridiculous sign-on bonuses. We want to bring them here because they want to be here, and because we have the workplace for them to do that and various things like that. And so that's been super, super awesome for us. And we are constantly expanding and constantly growing the platform, which is, most companies are kind of, they're still corralling their horses around, fending off those enemy attacks. Sorry, I'm reading a book, and there's a parable about they're going across the desert, and so I'll move away from.
I'll be looking for that in an upcoming, one take as you start talking about that move through the desert. But I think the first thing that I thought of when you talked about that simplicity is, I remember years ago getting an MP3 player. Cool. It could store 10,000 songs. Well, good, but I couldn't download the first freaking one. So mine didn't have any on it. I didn't use it at all.
Right.
But it had this great technology, but it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't easy to use. And then one magical Christmas, I got an iPod. And poof, within less than 5 minutes, I'm downloading songs from college. And I'm laughing. Mm-hmm. And I have a whole multiple playlist and everything, because it was a great user experience. It was simple. It was easy. So I love that you guys are bringing that back, because I think sometimes technology can just add to the complexity and not make it any easier or not make it any more cost effective. What's your kind of stance on where do you see AI? Where do you see AI impacting the industry, and kind of what's next on that frontier?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Everyone's talking about it. I hope it doesn't seem to be going the route of Bitcoin. I'll throw that out there. You can never, anytime you can say a Bitcoin joke nowadays, you do, or at least I do. I don't know why, but I think it's more than just a catchphrase. It's more than just a catch thing at the time. I think the problem is that I think it's twofold. One, most folks don't have a complete understanding of what AI is. And I'll be completely honest with you. I thought I did, but then I watched one of your podcasts with Josh, and he had oh gosh, what's the guy's name? I can't believe yes, and he was amazing, because he explained it like we were fourth graders, and I'm like, I need to be explained like fourth grader, and it kind of totally revamped my understanding. It's like, it's not just what we think it is, which is, the technology that we've seen, which is sort of, machine learning. This is active learning and suggestion making, as opposed to sort of pulling out an average, or based on this is what should happen. And I think it'll help a lot. But I think what people need to do is, that's the other side of the second piece, is that they have to have a full understanding of what it is, and then they need to look at it, the use cases in their world that it helps with, and that is a lot tougher than most people think. And don't just fall for the thing because they say, "Oh, we have AI. Well, hey, let me run to that and let's sign up." Let's figure out, does that actually make sense? Because otherwise, you're going to think it's that Bitcoin investment that made you a ton of money for 5 months, and then you're like, "What happened?" Because you didn't plan out right.
I think planning it out right and finding those use cases. I just gave a talk last week at a conference on AI. And one of the things that I really work to do is find use cases in the industry. Because for me, the biggest impact that AI people have to realize is AI is not just one tool. It's not just a POS. It's not just an LOS. It's not just a servicing system. And the analogy I started with is, when I got in the industry, only executives at the company had internet access.
Right.
And why was that? Well, the employees will screw around on the internet. They'll put confidential information out there. The data won't be secure. Sound familiar? Just like AI.
Right.
And as I started sharing the different use cases, like banks, 91% of banks use AI for fraud detection. That's real. That's a good use case where you're saying, okay, you start talking to people, and a lot more people are using AI and M&A to do a lot of the due diligence and crunching all of the documents and the numbers to find out. We still have a long way to go in lending, but I think, to your point, the critical part is people have to start and understand, what is AI, what's machine learning, what's generative AI, what is a model, what's a large language model, and start getting familiar with it, because it's going to impact, I think, all of us. Not magically, not in the next, 10 days or something, but I think over the long haul, it's going to just impact the industry as much as the internet did 30 some years ago.
Agree completely. And we're a shameless plug, but the Mortgage 365 platform is built on Microsoft. And Microsoft is doing a lot of really cool things with AI and with their tools that a lot of people can leverage if you're on a Teams meeting, different things like that, from summaries, various things like that, and action points and things. And so rather than just saying, throwing anything out there, we have our product team. Chance Jacobs is a great guy. And he is working with Jason Sedig, our founder, to not just slap an AI sticker on something or say we have this, but let's find out what are our clients leveraging it for right now, what is best for the market, and how can we best leverage that into our platform. Will you see something in the near to mid future from Mortgage 365 and our platform and with AI? 100%. But we are doing it,
right?
It will be very intentional, the same way the development of our platform was, which is why it sat basically in a I can never remember the word because I'm not a tech guy, but in a small broker shop. It was developed in real time and real usage, so we could get an idea of what worked best, and we tweaked it from there several years before it was ever rolled out to any client, even in the client beta form. And so, yes, do we need to accelerate on that? Is that something that that's going to be upfront for us pretty quickly? Absolutely. Thankfully, we have the tools already there because it's built on an excellent technology platform, only mortgage tech that is. But we also want to make sure it's the right thing for our current clients, as well as what our future clients are going to need, not just what we think is the right answer or what we think is the right for now, because we don't want to get in that. Nobody wants to be in the right for now and the wrong for the future. You want to work your way into it and make sure you're looking at both.
Jason, what's the best way people can get a hold of you and Mortgage 365 if they want to see this tool in action, if they want to see the power of simplicity? How can they get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. First, easiest way is our website. We just rolled out a very updated website, which is 100% different from what we had before. And that was at the end of, the end of August. And that's mortgage365.com. So mortgage and then 365 right there, .com. Or reach out to me anytime. I'm jason.smith@mortgage365.com. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn, chat there, meet up at anything. But yeah, I'm always around. But yeah.
I love the conversation. You and I could go on and on. I can't wait to see more of the One Take. If you guys aren't watching Jason's One Take, please go. You will do yourself a favor to watch those. He does an incredible job. And my friend, I can't wait to see you in Denver in a few weeks. So thank you so much for being a guest on this episode of the FinTech Hunting Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure as always.